So for the last card, we're going to use the Magicals with a stencil. So the stencil I used for my sample card was this one here. I believe they're ginkgo leaves, but I'm not, not good with my plant names. So for this one, or to demonstrate, I'm going to use this stencil just so we can see what how the different stencils look, because I'm curious too. So similar to the backgrounds, I'm just going to dust some of each of the colors, and I am going to use all of the colors for this because for the stencil I liked the look of the different colors all mixed together. So I'm just putting a little bit of each over the whole surface, and then I'm going to spray with water. Now you'll notice from my sample that some of the water did seep underneath the stencil. I'm fine with that. I don't know if there's a way to completely eliminate that. I think if you used a product like pixie dust or pixie spray, sorry, on the back of your stencils, it's a temporary adhesive. I think that might help, but I actually don't have any to try it out, and it's not a product that I've ever personally felt that I've needed, so I haven't tested and see if that would work. I know that my stencil is lifted in some of the areas, so I know for sure anywhere that it's lifted, it's definitely going to be seeping under the stencil there. But either way, it's going to create a beautiful background with that shimmer. So I'm just closing all of my Magicals, or my powders, up so I don't get any overspray in them. Put them to the side, and then I'm going to mist water as much or as little as you like. I'm just doing it until I see the colors moving around in the different areas. And there we go. Now we don't touch a thing. We let that completely dry and don't move anything until that is dry. All right, so the background isn't 100% dry, but it's dry enough so that the paint isn't going to be moved. And I have to admit, I already peeked and saw that the color snuck underneath. But the cool part about it is a lot of the mica stayed within the stencil, so I actually really quite like how the background turned out. And like I said, it's not completely dry, so I'm going to set that aside to dry. But one thing I did want to mention is in my sample, because there was a lot of white space in here, I added some splatters, and obviously that one is not going to have the white space in there. So just so you know how I did it, I took a splatter brush, took my little palette that I had my watercolor micas in, and I just splatted them over the background where I wanted them to go. Between the colors, I dried the brush off just so I wasn't contaminating the colors, and then you can go into a different color and then just let them dry. So it's a good way to just add some sparkly dots. It doesn't necessarily need to be with a stenciled image. It could be with a stamped image or whatnot, but just a way to add some of that color to the background in a way that's not going to overtake the actual image. So just wanted to address that for a moment. Gonna let that dry completely, and then we'll continue on with the card. All right, my background is completely dry, and I have cut it down to 4 inches by 5 1/4. So let's glue it onto the background. Oops. There you go, and grab the acrylic block to hold it down. And then glue the sentiment together. I've already die cut this exactly the same way as I die cut all the other ones. And in my sample, I don't have anything else other than the sentiment. But for this one, I thought I'd change it up a little bit just because the background is so covered and there's not the white space. All right, let's glue this to the card. that down for a moment. So these are the leaves that I made in, I think it was the first section that I really, really like. These are the ones that I made when I was doing the sample card, and I think I'm going to use these ones just because it's the color is a little bit more bold. But I'm going to glue these to the back of the card. Same design as the first card, but just with a stenciled background rather than an embossed background. And once again, I put a lot of glue on the back there, and I'm just going to put some more on there, just because there's a lot of texture there, and you want to make sure that the glue does have contact. So just put a little bit closer to the edges there. There. And same here, put a little bit closer to the edges, make sure it's got some contact with the paper below. It does need to sit to dry, but there we go. I really love how that background turned out as well, and how the mica kind of stayed mostly within the stencil. I'm going to set that to dry. And then one thing I wanted to show you while I was waiting for that to dry. So the cutouts from the leaves from this card here, while I was waiting for that to dry, I glued them onto the blue background that we made when we were doing the backgrounds, and that's what they look like. A little bit piddly to do and tedious to do, to place them all together and glue them down, but it does look really, really cool. I think I'm going to take another one of the leaves from when I was doing the sample cards. I still have the pieces from that, and glue it right in here, just because I think 4 is a weird number to have on there, but I just figured I'd show you that in a card.